Welcome, everybody. Welcome all. Welcome, Sundry. This is Talking Niagara with myself, Peter Giblett, and himself, Dave Wheeler. Morning, Dave. How are you doing?
Hello.
So, we've been okay. So we were talking last week, or you were talking last week in relation to your visit on the 2nd of June, and now the pointer has actually pointed out some of the things, and they're saying the ministry is about to take action after activists raised concerns on the 4th Avenue site.
Yes, I'm trying to get up the article now. Here we go.
I didn't know. I think taking action, I think that's too advanced, if you know what I mean. What I got from the gist of what you told me, and I'm not seeing how in what way the ministry is taking action.
Yeah, this was a little confusing to me too. The municipality is. Let me just get the article up. There we go. Yeah. So now the difficulty I have, I can't get the articles from Messenger, the ones you sent me, or this one either. I can't open them on my Messenger, so I had to go search for them in other places.
Oh,
Well, basically, like it says, the ministry, Niagara Falls Ministry, take action activists.
not Niagara Falls, the Ministry of Environmental and yeah.
So that's a little bit confusing to me because, as far as I could tell by the rest of the article, the ministry has sort of washed their hands of it, said, "Oh, we've done everything we've had to do." So maybe Ed Smith knows something I don't know here.
Yeah.
But basically, the article has told about the continuous activism of Mike Cushman and Gary Wilkins when it comes to the cyanamide land, the contaminants that have been moved, sadly, the kind of tar that was oozing out of the ground when Mike took a picture of it, and it was quickly filled up with sand. So when anybody came, they couldn't see it. They didn't take much attention to Mike's pictures. It seems to me that Mike and Gary are continuing this battle because they are not too convinced at all that the ministry or the developers have done due diligence in this area. Like Mike said, there was a picture there of big piles of tar oozing out, which is a known carcinogen, out of the ground. And before anybody could come to see it, they filled it up with dirt. Yeah, and they didn't even. So they gave them a picture. Here it is. Here's the tar coming out, and what we did find out in the tour is that the contractor, of course, if the contractor has to do environmental studies, they have to pay for it themselves.
Yeah.
So are you going to get an environmental study guy coming in there and telling you what you don't want to hear?
You see, if I'm going to open up, if you think about it, if I'm going to open up a site, and to development of whatever kind, right, and not go there, am I going to pay? So I'm going to pay $1 million, a couple of $1 million for the site, whatever it is, right? And then I'm asked for n number of millions of dollars or something potentially for an environmental study. Why would I as a developer want to pay that?
Well, you have to by law. You have an environmental study, but who are you going to get?
Yeah, I'm going to get somebody who's going to sweep it under the rug. Basically, is what I want. And
look, I've been there. I've been there with guys on contractors. Contractors have to bring in have to pay for their own safety people, outside people. Yeah. Right. What are you going to do? You're going to get a nudge and a wink?
Yeah.
You're going to get a nudge in a wink and say, hey, oh, well. What happens is right away, what happens with the companies, they come in and they find a few guys and they throw a few guys off the job for not wearing their harness right. But when the job gets going, and if there's anything that gets in the way of the speed of the job, you don't see those safety guys around.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they
walk through the day and they spot a guy with his his glasses on sideways.
Yeah, they're on site for a week, and then they're gone, right?
No, they're on site for the whole time, but you just don't see them. And when you get a super heavy lift or a critical lift or something like that, they just go somewhere and look the other way.
Yeah,
because you're going to be swinging a load over, and it's not going to, if you just are not going to be able to bring a safety. I see all kinds of that, and that's because the contractor is responsible for the safety, so the contractor has to pay. So the different safety companies are out there know exactly what this means. They means if you bring a person in or an outfit in, and that safety outfit sees it the way the contractor sees it, they get the job the next time. You see what I mean? I was on a big job in Stelco and Nanacoke, and we were working on the coke ovens, which had all kinds of poisonous gas and all the kinds of brutal stuff that could ruin you. We had special masks and everything else like that, and we had the safety guys were all over that. We had the special masks, and we had all this different things that we had, and they had showers for us at night too, so we could get all that stuff off us before we went home.
Yeah.
All right. The next safety guy that comes along, a different guy altogether, different outfit, nowhere near that kind of level of competency. In fact, they look the other way all the time, and including 3 incidences where things fell down from a higher height, almost killed the guys, and they just didn't do anything about it because the job was behind. And I think you're going to find the same thing happening here with the environmental guys. The environmental guys hired. The developer going to hire an environmental guy that's going to say, hey, well, there's a big pile of tar here. You can't develop. Or is he going to say, you know what? If I don't see that big pile of tar, I can't report on it. And the contractor then dumps some dirt on it. Oh, it's okay now.
Yeah. Yeah. And the worst of this is it affects people's lives.
Yeah, it does. So
not that, to my knowledge, we have any immediate development proposals for the cyanamide site, except
yes, you do. Well, you have close by. You have the old.
There's one on 3rd Avenue.
Hockey court.
Yeah, the hockey court. There's one on 4th Avenue, the hockey court. I mean, but apart from that, there's not any. There's not any proposals at the moment to develop the main cyanamide site, the main site. They're going to put the Sorrelstone Road through at some point in the next 3 years, I would think.
Well, that's part of the rub here. They keep the ministry and the city and the region can't do anything about that. That's private land.
Well, at some point,
you're saying it's and the ministry also says that if you have contaminants on a land that is identified as contaminated, it's better to leave the contaminated stuff there than to move it. But you're developing, okay, that's okay if it's more isolated, maybe, or if it doesn't drip into the water system, that kind of thing. If it's on contaminated land and it's isolated and you don't go near it, that's fine. But these are developments that are coming close to it.
Yeah.
Some of the contaminated dirt may be used as fill for the road. Who knows? And as a matter of fact, Sharon, the regional lady that was on that tour with us, and she was extremely defensive very, very quickly. She would not go down the rail line tracks to look at these mounds of dirt where Gary had identified many spills from cyanamide in the days that he worked there. but also there was these mounds that had once been identified with heavy metals. And she says, well, we know that none of them have heavy metals anymore, and I'm not going to go down there because I might get a tick.
Yeah.
So I did with short pants. I clogged on down there. I went with Mike and went down to have a look at it. And so she says, oh, we will be using that as landfill, but it's nice to just leave it here because we don't have anywhere else to put it. So we'll just leave it here until we need it.
Yeah.
Phil. So,
but at some point,
is it clean? And that's been, she said, the stuff that wasn't clean has been hauled off of there. It's been hauled off the walkers. But then if you talk to Mike and Gary, it wasn't hauled off the walkers. It was just put across the street from the Gale Center.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually a big, that looks pretty ugly sight, that one that's across the street from the Gale Center.
Yeah. So I don't know. That just
because one of the things, Ed Smith got a drone in the air, clearly.
I don't know if it's his drone or it's just the pictures that maybe Gary had Mike had provided him.
Actually, one of these is saying Google Maps.
Yeah. Okay. Then it's a satellite picture.
But I don't know. Yeah.
Wow. You can see the pictures of tar coming out of the, and all they do is just.
Well, those are clearly by Mike and Co., right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can cover it up, you can put sand on it, but it isn't going to stop the tar oozing out.
Well, here's another rub too. The Gale Center, because it's a recreational area, and they do these things called risk assessments. You've heard of them before, right? So okay. So the environmental people come along and say, well, this is a recreational area. People are going to be exposed or in this area for X amount of time. So we only have to dig down 4 feet before we put a cap on it, a clay cap, and that's okay for recreation. But right beside it is a residential, the townhouses there, right?
Yeah.
So they have to go by a different standard. So the environmental depth they have to dig, it has to be like 8 feet. It has to be deeper before it's capped and refilled and so on. But the one right beside it, where do you think that stuff's going to flow from?
Yeah.
It's going to flow from there, from where the recreational is, where the standards are not near so high, into the area where the standards are higher. And you can't stop that because they're side by side.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then on the other side, you don't have any measures to, what I found out too is that if a developer wants to develop contaminated land, he has to clean up that part of it, which he's going to develop. But the stuff on either side of it is not his. He doesn't have to worry about that.
So you parcel this up into tiny little chunks of land, and it's the responsibility, the quarter acre is a responsibility of the developer developing that quarter acre.
Yeah. So if you look at it, what's stopping the contamination from seeping in to the land that you have just cleaned up?
Yeah.
From its border areas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. What worries me, Are
you going to be protected if just because your particular townhouse is 3 feet away from contaminated land, but your townhouse, the back of your townhouse is only 3 feet away from contaminated land, but you're on clean land. Is that really going to protect you from the contaminated land beside? So there's all kinds of questions. And there's Mike there. And
City of Niagara Falls is still dumping an industrial area into the Welland River. Took pictures and reported it yesterday. Our government should be the one testing and doing the risk assessments. I agree. That's what bothers me, right? Today's risk assessments are done to precede an assumption that assumption and presumptions of fact. Remember, The potable water argument they use.
Yeah. So actually,
Wait another 20 years. They will wait another 20 years for the contamination to be released into our environment.
Well, in any case, Ed did a pretty good
And
job.
probably
Here.
by that time, you and I and everybody who knows about it will be dead, Mike, or too affirm to be able to do anything about it.
Seems to me that's what everybody wants to do, is to kind of look the other way and it'll go away. It will never go away.
Yeah.
It'll always be doing something wrong here. Anyway, and it says here too, in 1984, drums of industrial waste were unearthed on the site, resulting in fines for improperly disposing of toxic waste. And
yeah,
so you can imagine how many they didn't find.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
they were out there. How many dumps they didn't find?
Yeah.
How many times where they just say, "Okay, let's get rid of this barrel of waste." Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We'll just knock it over, let it pour out here down the sewer or on this piece of property here, and Bob's your uncle. Nobody knows any different. So actually, Ed did a pretty good article here.
Yeah, but I don't know what
he got a picture of my best side, which is my backside, and
I don't know what. I still don't know what the ministry is going to do.
No, it doesn't really say anything, but he does suggest that he does compare this to the GM lands in St. Catharines that have not been developed because the residents have put up sort of a barrier there, asking for what is the human effects of. So they go for the health effects, but they only do like I said before, they only do what the piece of property they're developing. They don't consider adjacent properties.
Yeah.
And
okay, so
the ministry and the region and the city have all kind of washed their hands of the stuff that's on private property.
Yeah. And the other question here is that, okay, so I'm going to congratulate Mike on one thing. We've been inviting the city to walk this area for 30 years. All right. And clearly this is the first time they've done it. So, major step in the right direction, even if you got some people who were negative on the day. Maybe the next generation of people that you get from the city and region onto the land will actually be looking at this with more concern and want to do something about it.
You know why it's not going to happen, at least in the city and the region, because of the amount of time and resources they have to use to dig into this stuff. So they have to start digging into report after report, and like Mike has done. And that gives them like hours and hours and hours of work they have to review. And all they really have to do in their mind is go to the ministry, say, "Hey, ministry, is this okay?" And the ministry says, "Yeah, we didn't see anything. We didn't hear anything. So we're saying it's okay. Okay. Go ahead, build the property in there." So that's what I think it really is. I'm not so sure the ministry knows what they're doing. Why aren't they paying attention to these videos that Mike and Gary are showing them when they claim that they have hauled away contaminated land and they're just actually going over someplace and assign them and dump some more of it there? Do we have any kind of independent report? Like, we're supposed to be able to rely on the ministry, but sometimes the ministry just doesn't want to do anything. We saw that when Mike saw that stuff leaking into the Welland River just last summer. And he brought that up, and they just kind of wanted to slough him off and say, "Oh, well, it's not really," put up a few socks kind of thing. Well, they pay more attention to him now, don't they?
Well, yeah, but Mike has been at this for quite some time.
Yeah,
I just wish there was somebody, both, and no disrespect to either Mike or Gary, but both of them are aging, and at some point, their knowledge will be gone.
Well, it might not be bad for a lot of the knowledge in Gary's head to be gone.
I'm not talking about the other knowledge or lack thereof.
I hope you heard it there.
I'm not talking about other things, but in this area, Gary and Mike have got specific knowledge that needs to be shared.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, it's like, I don't wish you gone, Mike, and absolutely not. But I want, but at some point that's going to happen. We're all older generation here, and we're going to be, at some point we're not going to be around.
Well,
it is.
That's really cheerful. Hey, what are we going to do now? Ask Mike what we want to put on his tombstone.
No, I'm not going there. I'm just saying that the thing is that once those in the know are gone, they tend to end up doing something, and hoping nobody knows.
I don't know. There's lots of life left back in both those guys right now. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Unless, but they both, look, Gary worked in that contaminated facility.
Yeah.
So did I with the contractors. Luckily, I was only in there for a couple of weeks at a time.
Yeah.
Anytime. But Gary was exposed for a very long time. And Mike has been lived in Silvertown and areas like that was notably contaminated. So they both have good reason to bring this up.
Yeah. And Mike,
very much appreciate it. I just don't know how far they're going to get when, especially working with the government. Government doesn't want to do anything anyway,
Yeah, and Mike points out, it's exactly what I said. They're waiting for another generation to forget. That is why we put it on the record, so one day they're held accountable. I agreed with you, Mike. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. All right. Okay, so anything else on that?
No, not anything more except that Ed Smith wrote a very balanced article. I enjoyed reading it.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, Trump's military parade, a nationwide protest associated with it, right? Apparently, there was 1,800 different protests against that his military parade, and I can't help but think how Stalin would be proud of Donnie.
Well, it's like Rand Paul said. He said Rand Paul, who is as conservative as you can get, and who's normally a Trump supporter, said he wasn't big on jackbooting soldiers marching down the street with tanks and stuff. He says that's more like for North Korea, Soviet Union, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And it really, from the films that I saw of it, really wasn't all that impressive. There weren't a whole lot of people there, apparently. There was far less people with empty bleachers and everything.
Yeah. And the pictures that were primarily in the news were of the closest stands to the White House. To where the president was. I mean, like everybody in the same area.
And he was trying to sort of duplicate what he saw in France. President Macron and had a huge parade, and I don't know what the occasion was, where they had this huge parade. And Trump,
the French do parades, probably Bastille Day.
Whatever it was, a
lot of people turn out for Bastille Day, believe it or not.
It impressed Trump very much, and of course he's pretty much impressed by the North Korea thing and the Chinese and all their big parades. He likes them, right? he thinks he should have one too. So he had one, but it really didn't measure up to the, if you wanted to compare it to the ones that are in Russia or in France or in other places that have these by tradition, it really didn't come across all that well. The soldiers, in my surprise, were not marching at all. They were not in uniforms. They were in fatigues, and they were just walking, and they weren't even walking in time.
Well, they were basically showing things like drones and the like.
Yeah, but the soldiers themselves were not marching.
Yeah,
and at least the ones I saw were just kind of guys in regular fatigues and walking down the street.
Yeah,
which is not very impressive.
No, you're absolutely right, because how did Stalin impress? He impressed by pristine pristine uniforms, and military steps, very precise, very military kind of style of doing it.
Yeah, actually, on the
one thing
I
that
tell you, look, in Ghana, when I was in Ghana, and they had their birthday party when I was there, and they had, everybody was marching. The school kids, mostly the school kids, and other people, and some of the military and police. Everybody was marching, and they were crisp, and they had kind of straight leg, not quite a goose step, but a straight leg marching kind of style that looked very, very, very cool the way they did it. And I was able to be in the auditorium for this. Well, those school children and stuff really outdid what I saw, what Trump had there. I don't know. The kids were in their school uniforms, and they marched with the teachers in front and all that kind of thing. So I really don't know what that accomplished.
Well, it was supposed to be, the whole parade was supposed to be for the 250th anniversary of the creation of the armed forces in the US.
Yeah, and it just so happened to correspond with Trump's birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that was any accident. Oh, well, So in 1775, the army was created. Yeah.
Yeah, the other irony, of course, is Trump, the draft skipper, is the one who produces a 250th memorial parade for the army. Yeah.
Yeah. Dodgy Donnie Bone Spurs is the guy that wants the military parade, but he wouldn't go serve his country.
Yeah.
When at a time of war.
And you see, had there been a military parade 50 years ago at the 200th anniversary of the creation of the US military, probably you'd have seen thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people in the stands watching.
Maybe.
And zero protesters.
Yeah, well, that's what the irony was, that the protests were larger than his parade.
Yeah, when you add them all together, all across the country, they were larger than his parade. Yeah.
No, some of them, some single ones. I think one of the cities was attracted more, had more people in it than the whole parade did.
Yeah, San Francisco was pretty big, apparently.
So one city had more protesters than the whole parade had.
And Philadelphia. Because Philadelphia, of course, is just down the road, right?
Yeah, it's the birthplace of freedom, because that's where they were writing this stuff up, in Philadelphia. Yeah. The Constitution, that was the original. That was the.
And they braved, and those protesters braved the rain in New York City.
Yeah. So I don't know, like, I think overall Americans are just not big on flashy displays of weaponry. They are. I think they just do not. That's not part of their character. That's kind of conflicts with their ideas of freedom and so on. I think that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, I think that was a kind of washout, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it didn't really work that well, but I don't know. We'll see. But also, what was problematic at the time, there was this war starting in between Israel and Iran at around the same time. This sort of took a lot of the luster away from it.
Yeah.
Particularly when the U.S. Was part of the setup for the whole thing.
Yeah.
They said that Israel would not. They said that Israel would not attack Iran as long as the discussions were in place, and then they're getting ready to do some more discussions in Oman, and Israel strikes, and it looks as if the Americans helped set them up for that.
Well, that actually is the accusation, isn't it? So Trump, but at the end of the day, they're saying Trump vetoed the call upon, the plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei.
Yeah, that's what we're being told now. I'm not so sure if it's a bluff or not, because Trump said they didn't know anything about it, but then bragged about helping plan it and help setting them up, and then said, "Look, this is going to get even worse." So basically, it sounds as if the U.S. was in on it from the very beginning, which I do believe, because they would not allow the Israelis to make that kind of a punch. So basically, what they're trying to do is use the Israelis to force the Iranians into a deal that the Americans want. Now, they had a really good deal before that limited the amount of nuclear fissile material they could make, and they could track it. So much material came in, went to the fissile, to the centrifuge, and then that went to France to be made into fuel rods, and then come back to be used in their nuclear power stations. It takes quite a bit more refining to get it to the point where it's fissile material of the kind required for a bomb. That takes quite a while. They use a uranium system where they have to vaporize the uranium first and then centrifuge it. And so that takes a long time to build up enough fissile material to of the highly refined kind that you're required for an atomic bomb. And we're talking atomic bombs here. We're not talking hydrogen bombs.
Yeah.
So they've never been really when Iraq started to build a nuclear power station. The French were building it in Iraq. The Israelis came and blew the thing to smithereens. They didn't want that to happen, so they made sure that Iraq would never get a nuclear power plant, because they feared, of course, nuclear power plant, you could easily refine the uranium or plutonium, whatever you're using, to become bomb material. That's what they're afraid of in Iran, but as long as they had watchdogs on it, that wasn't going to happen. And Trump took those watchdogs away. And so Iran has felt more and more fear all along about Israel's bombs. And of course, Pakistan, its neighbor to the south, has nuclear bombs. In India, it has nuclear bombs. So it's surrounded with people with nuclear bombs. And even Russia, north of it, which is borders, I might have some border with Russia there.
I don't know. They have borders with former
Soviet,
yeah.
But they're very close, and they have bombs. So they're surrounded by people who have atomic bombs. I think they're more afraid of Pakistan, to tell you the truth, because Pakistan is an unstable government. It's a Sunni regime. They are a Shia regime. And and they've got the bomb.
Yeah.
Israel itself wants. They do know, like the United States and Israel want to destabilize almost every government in the region, and they have been successful in destabilizing Iraq, Libya, and Syria. So they want to destabilize Iran as well, to make sure that it can't become a significant power. We'll see how this turns out. The Israelis, the U.S. supported Israelis have done a remarkable. Whatever you feel about the Israelis, they have done an incredible job of espionage.
Yeah, but you talk about and remember, a lot of the time, 20 years ago, 20 odd years ago, the US had absolutely zero intelligence capability within the Middle East. The only people that they could ever get any military intelligence from was Mossad.
Are you sure?
20 years ago, back when 9/11 occurred, they really didn't know what the hell was going on in the Middle East.
Well, why didn't Israel tell them that 9/11 was coming if they're that good?
Yeah,
they did they?
They didn't. No.
Though this has been like the United States have people salted all over the earth, informants all over the place, because they get money to pay them, and Mossad has been able to work its way into here and there and everywhere. You know why? Because all these countries are not very sophisticated, and they do not run, in my opinion, of the Muslim countries, they're usually not run by merit. They're run by families or friends.
Yeah.
So they don't look for people who have the merit or the best people for the job, where in the West we do, for the most part. Look for people who do the best. So what happens is you get all these friends and relatives and stuff, like Saddam Hussein was famous for, running things. Well, he could trust them all because they're all family and clan members. But on the other hand, they may not be the smartest tools in the shed. Yeah. So,
But again,
So that's what I think. Look, the whole, like the U.S. backed Israel intelligence service, the CIA and the Mossad and everything, they feed each other. They help each other, of course, but the bulk of it has to be done with the CIA, because they're the ones that have the sophisticated satellites. They're the ones that have the sophisticated listening.
But I think it's important to point out
the equipment they're going to be using comes from the U.S., right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to point out one thing. Right? In my view, Israel is not the defender of the West. It's, to make such a statement is politically loaded and oversimplified. Israel is a sovereign state with its own strategic interests, and whilst it has historically enjoyed strong support from Western powers, especially the US, this relationship is based more on geopolitical alignment, shared security interests, and regional strategy, more than on Israel serving any kind of ideological outpost of the West. Right? I don't think they are an ideological outpost for the West. I think we
how could they be? They're a religious they're an ethno-religious state.
Yeah, exactly.
They're an you have to be a Jew and you have to be Jewish. Really, if you have any, like, there are Muslims there are what, 1.8 million Muslim Palestinians within Israel, and about 180,000 Christian Palestinians in Israel proper.
Yeah.
And guys like Smotrich and Ben Gvir want to get rid of them too, out of Israel. So about 20% of the population 1 in 5 are not actually Jewish. But you cannot migrate there. If I wanted to immigrate there, they weren't going to let me. But if a Jewish guy, only knowing Hebrew, wanted to immigrate to Canada, they could.
Yeah. I'm seriously concerned, and with everything that's going on there, and I've always been a supporter of the need for Israel. I don't been a supporter of what Israel has done, but I'm wondering, more.
So you support them taking the land away from Palestinians and sending them to the state.
Whilst we had a situation whereby we were dual usage of the land, dual usage of the state, I was fine with the status quo. Now we're moving to the situation whereby Israel must take the land, for its own benefit. It's like, no, I'm finding myself less and less. I do not support Israel anymore. The reason for the creation of Israel is gone. The need for an Israeli state.
Well,
if
you look into the Zionists themselves, it was a colonial state. They really did plan on getting rid of the Arabs that lived there for 1,000 or more years. So they wanted to get rid of them, displace them, get them out. They weren't going to share the land. They wanted a Jewish only state, and they almost have one now. And pretty much it was homeland for Jews, but now they find that it's a little bit too small. So they want to take the West Bank, and they want to take Gaza. They took the Golan Heights. They want more. At one time they had the Sinai, and that was a bit too big of a bite. But they are expansionist, and they want a greater Israel. They will expand over the Jordan River into Jordan if the United States lets them. And the United States is weak when it comes to Israel. So when they say that, like, and the United States is supporting Israel because Israel is his only friend in the region, baloney. I mean, it's they can use it as an attack dog. I think probably the reason why they let Israel do what Israel wants to do because according to the Americans, they're against settlements officially, but they just let them happen.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no consequence for it. And they're against the persecution and oppression of Palestinians, but they let it happen. They just kind of look the other way.
Well, this is increasingly why I find I can no longer support the state of Israel.
The state of Israel was built on a wrong premise anyway. It's a colonial state. It got recognition. Nobody really looked at how this was going to come and who was going to be victimized by this. And then once they were massively guilty for what they had done to the European Jews, like murdered them in mass, and don't think that the French and the Ukrainians and the Poles all helped round up the Jews to put them in concentration camps. So now you get Europe in a massive guilt thing. So it's a sure, let these Jewish people have their land over there, and they can get rid of those people who live there and put their country there, and we'll support that. See, there's not much thinking happened here. Everybody thinks that's fine to do that. Well, there were people living there, and we did it to the Native American Indians, but most of them died off, so there was lots of room. And we just have to get rid of the ones that were left over and put them on reserves. But that wasn't the case in Palestine. When you start pushing people out of their land, where are they going to go? Right? They're going to go to the West Bank, Gaza. They're going to go to Jordan, right? And then they're going to start fighting back.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I've got one comment. Hi, Chris. Absolutely. Hi. Okay. Moving on. US orders 500,000 citizens of 4 countries to leave.
Yeah. for some of these people have been here for quite a long time.
Been in the US for a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
These are Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. And many Cubans, particularly, came as political dissidents.
Yeah, I don't know why he's picking on Cubans. But of course, they've got this, MAGA's got this weirdo ram idea about what communists are. So if they came from a communist country, even if they're fleeing from the communist country, they might have been tinted with or tainted with communist ideology. So you better get rid of them.
But again, that whole communism thing is such a thing of the past.
I don't know. Nobody understands communism. I heard. I was listening to one of the local shows recently, and they talked about communism. They don't know a thing about communism.
Yeah,
you know, stuff like George Soros is trying to take over the world and make the whole world a communist state. The biggest capitalist ever, George Soros, the biggest capitalist of all time, wants to make the country communist. That's just ridiculous.
Well, it basically.
And then if you ask somebody what communism is, they don't even know what it is. They haven't got a clue.
I think what happens is with many of these people, particularly from, particularly in the US, it is, let's define communism. Okay, let's look around for some guy we don't like, point at him and say, you're a communist and everything you do is communism.
Well, they look at things like the World Trade Federation. They look at the WTF, the WTO, World Health Organizations and stuff. And these are big bureaucratic bodies, and they've got lots wrong with them. But a lot of the times they're trying to sort out how best to make the world better for everyone, and redistribution of wealth and that kind of thing. So what that does is it makes very rich people very afraid, and then they pay off their commentators to make everybody afraid.
Yeah.
So they go to Fox and then Fox, here's some money. This is what I want you to say.
Yeah, World Health Organization on the whole has, I think, done more, despite what you say, it's got problems. And I think even WHO will say that admit they've got problems. We only have to look at, dare I say, we only look at COVID and we can see that it's done more good than harm.
So what about the World Monetary Fund? What about that? Do you
WMF? No, IMF, you mean? International.
IMF, yeah.
IMF is actually an organization to ensure that that countries toe the line to the capitalist way of doing things.
What about the World Trading Organization? What about the World Trade Organization?
World Trade Organization, again, it's there to encourage trade between capitalist nations.
Well, this is one of the organizations they feel that are trying to make the world a communist place, where they want to take your rights away. They want to make you a robot.
The whole point about the World Trade Organization is it's supposed to help people who want to source products from other nations to achieve that goal.
What about Klaus Schwab? Is he international communist? Lurking in the background with his agents, trying to make us a communist robot? It is, isn't he? Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm so scared.
Yeah. Yeah. And precisely, you're hitting the nail on the head there, Dave. A lot of hogwash here.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely.
And again, when you talk
World Economic Forum, he's part of the world. Is the World Economic Forum an evil communist organization? Just with worms of ill intent going through our minds, changing us into robotic communists.
I'm going to ask you one question about this. So, of course, that organization was, of course, set up by the Communist International or the Soviet Union, wasn't it?
Well, it was next. This I got it right up here. The World Economic Forum is an international advocacy, non-governmental organization and think tank based on Colony Canton of Geneva, Switzerland. It was founded in 1971 by German engineer Klaus Schwab.
There you go.
The foundation's stated mission is improving the state of the world by engaging business, political, academic, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industrial agenda. Sure sounds like a communism to me. Ooh.
Well, the first one on there was business and economic growth, right?
Well, of course, that's what they're trying to destroy because they have to make us communist robots.
Yeah, the whole thing about this is just nonsense. Anyway, yeah. So again, the Department of Homeland Security is now, has sent emails apparently to 500,000 people of Cuban, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela descent to expel them from the country.
Okay, so this all implicates the G7, the World Bank, World Trade Organization, and International Monetary Fund came under heavy criticism by anti-globalization activists who asserted capitalism and globalization were increasing poverty and destroying the environment. If anything, the world economy has improved overall. Of course, it's going to have your up and down. Right now, we're kind of in a down. But if you read a book by Hans Rosling, it tells you that things have improved incredibly over his lifetime. He had a very short lifetime. He died at about in his late 60s there. He always had health problems. But he worked for the UN, and he was a doctor, and he saw the improvements of the world going forward. So these organizations are never going to be perfect. Never. Just like your own government, our government, the regional government, anything else like that. But they are forums by which people can come to and discuss how they can improve the world.
Yeah.
They are not shadowy communists country organizations.
No. No, and in fact, actually, most of the accusations people, that are thrown around about communists, etc., people don't even know.
No, they don't. They hear it on Fox, communism, and they think they know it because, communism is bad. They're going to take over. They're going to make us into robots, but they haven't got a clue. They never took a book and opened it up and read about communism. What its intents are, whether they're good or bad or whatever. They just don't know.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Niagara Jazz Festival's Big Easy celebration along Queen Street.
Now you got to tell me all about that one because I can't open your article.
You can't open that article. Weird. I got this from the Niagara this week, and basically June 14th was actually all about this downtown going through resurgence, and this was basically all about bringing a kind of Mardi Gras feel to Niagara Falls. And it's going to be going on this weekend, June 20th, at the Oaks Garden Theatre. So the festival's Summer Mardi Gras will be held, this coming Saturday, right?
Yeah. So that's pretty good. I'll see if I can get up the article myself here.
Yeah. And there's going to be day-long events, including interactive workshops at various locations, cocktail and food demonstrations, arts and craft workshops, and special discounts to pop-up performances. And they the point being is, I think that we do need something like this. We've been since the demise of some of the earlier festivals that we've had. It would be nice to get back to some form of festival for Niagara Fallians and tourists alike.
So anyway, it looks like it reminded visitors the festival's summer Mardi Gras will be held. Like, what do we always got to copy somebody else's stuff? That's what bothers me here. So we got to copy the Mardi Gras. That's New Orleans. Don't we have something of our own?
Yeah,
Don't we have our own jazz festival of some kind?
Can we put a new name to it? You know,
it's the second line in New Orleans is a vibrant street parade tradition rooted in African American culture. Well, that would be good. I suppose that's because there's dancing and everything else like that. But don't we, I got nothing against it, but don't we have something of our own? Why do we always have to copy something?
Yeah, why do we have to copy somebody else's name? Yeah. Big Easy is going to be Big Easy, and that's all there is to it. You can't, you can't repeat that, but what you can is do something different.
Well, it's going to be, it looks like there's going to be street barbecue with Cajun chicken. Okay, well, I'm good with that. They can call that the Big Easy if they want, because that sounds like good food. Well, by the way, I had some really good Indian food last night. The two of my sons took me to dinner last night for Father's Day, and we went to an Indian restaurant on Victoria Avenue there. It was really good.
Which one was that?
Ocean Palate.
What?
Ocean Palate, I think it's called. It's right there where the ramp comes up from the 420 right on Victoria.
Oh, okay.
It used to be an old cigar house. I think I used to go in there and smoke cigars at one time. Used to be
I would have to say I've seen. I would have to sing the praises of a place called the Balti House.
Where's that at?
Which is also on Victoria Avenue, and
how's it spelled?
Balti.
Baldy House. Okay.
Yeah.
That's got good Indian. That's got good Indian grub.
Absolutely the best. Right.
Okay, I gotta try that.
Yeah, one of the best I've tasted here in North America. That's for sure. All right. And
this one was pretty good. I had an
English Indian chef in it. Right. They have an English Indian chef.
Okay. Well, good. Yeah, you got to have. Well, this.
So it reminds me.
I was surprised about how many Indians were down there. All that whole section seems to be bought up by Indians down there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I've seen that other place that you're talking about. We were looking out actually for new Indian food. And I have to say that this place that I've got, I've been trying all of them around, and looking for good food, and finally found some.
Well, this one had a pretty good. I wanted to get this fish curry, but they didn't have it anymore. But they did have one that was close to it, and I originally stayed away from that one when I was selecting because it was coconut milk in it, and I thought, well, it won't be as spicy. I thought, or wouldn't have.
I love a good fish curry in a coconut milk.
Well, you'll like this one. I had a lovely one last night. I was very pleased with it. When you're talking about fish, it's like that's the, like, chicken or beef, you can get away with sort of half good stuff. Yeah. But when it was fish, it's better be good, or you're going to get too much of a fishy taste or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think they used kingfish in it, and it was very tasty.
Unusual to find kingfish, but I like kingfish. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, it was good. And on each one of my son. My oldest boy, he had squid, and my other boy had I forget what he had, but octopus, and my sort of daughter-in-law there had she had chicken, I think it was, and it was all really good, really good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
So, I mean, I was pleased, but I'm going to try this Bilotti place too next time, maybe, if you say it's that good.
Yeah, I do. I highly recommend it. Not a big place, but do you know where there used to be this big Chinese on Victoria? There used to be a big Chinese buffet place.
Jade Garden.
Yeah, no, might have been actually. I don't remember the name. To be quite honest.
Jade Garden it's not it's.
It was further out. It's the other side. It's my side of the 420.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
But not too far.
Not too far. Yeah.
It's that was a Jade Garden, probably.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, as I say, it was a long time ago. I don't remember the name. But though this is only taking a chunk of that that area, so so it's not as big as the old Jade Garden used to be.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the Jade Garden used to be a great Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I heard a story that at one time, now the black dignitaries may have been confused, but apparently someone of a Ukrainian background owned a building, either owned the Jade Garden or what was to become the Jade Garden. And they had hotel rooms on the top, and they were American activists that came up to Niagara Falls, New York, and Buffalo. Had difficult times finding places to stay during the during like Martin Luther's time, and Martin Luther evidently came to this person to where the Jade Garden was, and stayed there.
Okay.
Because they couldn't get rooms, or were sort of banned basically from having rooms, and as being a black social and worker of kinds, bringing anyway. I'm getting my mind's going all over here, but so that was just kind of an interesting story. That if that could ever be backed up, that would be cool for that building.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I don't know. Maybe there was a hotel back in the day, because it's quite a large building. And
well, there was rooms. The rooms on top were supposed to be rented, and the restaurant underneath.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, there's two buildings there now. One of which is no longer a restaurant, but something else.
Yeah.
Two parts. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that food.
Okay. So I'm gonna try out the Bilotti. There's a really good it's a pretty good sushi place right there on Magdalen, I think it is. East, I think it's called East something. And I think it's in
East Izakaya.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Right, it's right down there around Magdalen Street somewhere.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
I was there a few weeks ago. That's also really good. I had eel there. It was really good.
Yeah, I met the CEO of East quite some time ago.
That's a nice one. And it's outrageously.
Actually, it's a local. It's locally owned by Niagara, and it's growing out of Niagara. They've now got places in St. Catharines, and they're looking at moving out of the Niagara area to other places.
As long as they stay here as well.
Oh yeah, they're moving out to new locations elsewhere.
Well, anyway, they had really good sushi. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And if you're into sushi, but they also have Canadian menu, I think.
Yeah.
But when I went there, it wasn't overly priced, so it was price reasonable, and the food was really good. So there's a few gems out there for the average.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to end it at that point.
Yes, indeed. And without further ado, I bid you adieu. we are in a situation where Netanyahu just loves killing people, dropping bombs, and which is outrageous to me. He's claiming that the Iranians are targeting citizens, and they've killed 20, where the Israelis have killed over 200 citizens. Yeah. And he's saying that Iran is targeting citizens. What a jerk. Anyway, I hope this comes to an end. He's made a fool out of Trump. Trump doesn't even know it. He's played him like a fiddle. He couldn't get any other president to bomb or let him bomb the crap out of Iran, but Trump, he's letting him do it. Oh, well, we'll see how that ends. But while it's done, it's going to kill a lot more people right now. And I don't think there's going to be much difference in the final solution that's coming. And, I don't think I should use the word final solution. That has too much.
Yeah, I know where you go. I know what you meant by
When this is all concluded, I don't think much is going to be changed, except they do want regime change in change in Iran. But in any case, we still have Gaza and the slaughter that's going on there. And
and there are many in the Iranian diaspora that actually want regime change in Iran. There's many. I've met many Iranians living in the West that want it back. That want a new regime and more democratic regime.
Of course, the fact that the Brits and Americans put their puppet, the Shah, in, they had a government. They had a democratically elected government in 1951, I think it is. But the Americans and the Brits were very afraid that oil would not belong to them as much. So they engineered a coup, and they put a dictator in charge. They didn't really care what the dictator did. The Iranian people got mad, but unfortunately, the only one that was organized enough to be able to take over government was the brutally oppressive Ayatollahs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what happened in Russia when the Bolsheviks took over, and what happened in China when the communists took over. They were an organization that could take over when the people got mad at the government that was there. So but one thing you got to know is the government that's there. What about the government that will come? Is it going to be better or worse than the Ayatollah?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, don't forget Gaza. Pray for peace.